Good morning, recruiters. Well, good morning if you're in the same time zone as me. I'm in North America, but I realize that we have a lot of you tuning in from all over the world. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and thank you so much for joining me. I was thinking quite a bit this morning and also leading up to this chat that I have now done so many LinkedIn Lives, so many interviews, so many discussions that were targeted at entrepreneurs, marketers, coaches, and consultants. And I hadn't done a single one for my people, for fellow recruiters. And so it started thinking, why is that? And we'll chat about it today. We're here predominantly gathered as third-party recruiters. And in my experience in the industry, in the field, which I've been in for I think 15 years. I hesitate to say the number because it sounds what's my age. That makes me feel overwhelmed. I've been in the field for 15 years and always felt, a few things. So first of all, to quickly introduce myself to those of you who don't know me, my name is Marina Bezhanova. I was born in the Soviet Union, grew up in Ukraine. I live in Montreal, Canada, fell into recruitment by pure chance, haven't most of us, and fell in love with it. Like, absolutely fell in love with the vocation, which before I fell into it, I did not even know existed. Okay, did not know that people just did this for a living. Okay, fell in love with it, but found a few issues with it. So first of all, so tired of the constant, especially constant online targeted bullying of recruiters. No matter what I post, there will always be somebody who just shows up to say, I hate recruiters, I hate headhunters, and it becomes daunting, right? And I'm sure people in other professions get it too, but we get it quite a bit. So, number one. Number two, I've noticed that I'm never really, when people you like a networking event or you meet somebody new and they say, what do you do for a living? And I felt that I was never proud and excited to say, I'm a recruiter. So then when I started my own firm called Pronexa here in Montreal, my own recruitment firm, well, then my answer was, oh, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a business owner. But then inevitably people ask, okay, well, what business, what line of work are you in? And then again, I would feel like, no, I'm a recruiter, never felt too proud of it. And certainly, another thing that's always, made me very uneasy about the work that I do, and certainly even more so right now in the times of volatility that we find ourselves in, is just how dependent we are on our clients' hiring needs, how dependent we are on the economy, how dependent we are on the market. And so as I've been chatting about all of this in the last couple of weeks with my fellow recruiters, we've been saying, we should come together and talk about this openly, talk about our struggles right now, talk about what we love about our vocation, but things also that we don't love as much. Support each other, realize that even though we've all been a little bit in hiding as far as how we're doing and how we're feeling, we're not alone. And also talk about, well, what can we be doing as a result? What can we be learning? How can we be transforming as well? Business is not as usual. Will it ever be? Likely not. So what can we do to support each other? So this will have a bit of a support group vibe going on. So grab your coffee, your tea, or whatever beverage makes you feel most supported. Do me a favor, be active. If you're here, stop hiding. Introduce yourself in comments below. Where you're from, what part of the world. Are you a third-party recruiter? If yes, what field? Are you a generalist? What are you specializing in? Just tell us a little bit about yourselves, so that it feels not just like the four of us talking, but really a true, I'm saying support group, but I mean on the big scale, live and not so private. So without further ado, I would love to introduce the ladies that are joining me today. So we've got, I was as I was just like writing down, ladies, and when I was writing up the description of the event, I was writing Kasia from Poland, Karen from Israel, Laura from New York, and I'm like, New York is not a country. Like, what am I writing? Laura, but like New York's just New York. So thank you so much for joining me, ladies, for this interesting, raw, and honest discussion that we're going to have today.
Thank you for having us.
Hey,
Thank you. Yeah, happy to be here. Absolutely.
And because we all are, independent, we do our own thing, but with a twist. We're not in the exact same field. Just 30 seconds to a minute, if you can just introduce yourself and say what it is exactly that you do, your main focus. We'll start with you, Cassia.
right. So I train recruiters. I started by training them in sourcing because that was always my focus when I was in recruitment myself. So basically identifying candidates. And I've sort of expanded just because companies think sourcing is the answer to everything. It's not. So anything really that recruiters need to train on, including just being decent people in a very difficult business. I'm there for them.
Interesting. Laura?
Sure. I started Eastside Staffing 7 years ago, which specializes in the placement of HR and talent professionals, mostly in New York. I did laugh because New York sometimes can feel like its own country. But yeah, my specialty is really helping the folks who are often underserved, which is our community, as we talked about. So,
Welcome. And Karen, what about you?
So hi from over two ponds, right? The Atlantic Ocean and the Mediterranean Sea. I train sourcers on one hand, that's one hat, global sourcing, and I'm also very deep into HR tech. Just because 3 years ago I understood, I saw what artificial intelligence and advancement of all the exponential technologies where they're taking us. So I thought I should secure some kind of a job. And so I'm into HR tech and I do a lot of that. Talk about it, blog about it. I mentor startups. So I'm really deep into recruiting technology and what's available to us. And I think that's important these days, as we will probably talk about.
Mm-hmm. And Karen, how is the current situation affecting you and your business?
So, the first thing that happens is that companies cut off training because it's like the cream, okay, that you don't pay for that. So I've gone from full-time busy to zero. I'll be very honest. That's what happened to me. And even to be more honest, a lot of people around me were really busy and moving their business to remote and everything. I had to calm down, look at the market, see what kind of needs, what's happening out there, what recruiters are going to need, what HRs are talking about. And I still haven't even launched back my business. Okay, I'm still looking because I think that only in the last week, maybe at least after Easter here in Israel, they're just going back to work and they finally maybe understand what it is they're going to need and what less. So I've been laying low. I've been talking in webinars and stuff, but I haven't been training. Yeah, that's what I've been doing, but I'll come out when I feel I'm good and ready, and when the market is good and ready. And I hope and I think it's very soon.
Mm-hmm. And when you're saying that you've been laying low, it makes me reflect on something that Laura's been saying for a little while now, which is recruiters in general seem to be laying low. And there is a lot of behind the scenes talk on how are you feeling? Is your business down to complete zero, or do you still have 10%? What's going on. We talk a lot about, restaurants and stores and a lot of businesses that have been hit. We're not necessarily talking about ourselves, each other, and, fellow recruiters. Tell us a bit about that, Laura. What are some of the things that you're hearing from fellow recruiters who are reaching out to you privately, since you have such a big network?
yeah, well, first of all, Karen, I appreciate your honesty because I think we're probably all in that same boat, but so few want to admit it. So all of the calls I get usually start with, how's business? You have clients, you have tons of searches. And then when I answer honestly, well, no, most of my HR leaders have laid off many members of their team, they've cut budgets. Then I'll hear an exhale on the other end of the phone and someone will say, oh, thanks for admitting it. Me too. It's been really hard. Half of my friends have been laid off, half are without half of their salary. And I think we have to create this culture where we can say it. For some reason in recruitment, we tend to emerge when we're booming, when business is great, when you have tons of speaking engagements, we have tons of training events, and we have tons of searches. You'll see our LinkedIn feed booming with material. I find when times are difficult, there's almost a retreating. And I wonder if it's because our industry was historically so competitive and not really very collaborative, whether it's internal versus external, even internal TA teams versus their competitors, you know, and I say that term loosely because I don't really believe in that culture, but I think that could be part of it. People are sort of afraid to admit it, to maybe be perceived as weaker. I know Kasha has taught me a lot about some training she had done about subordinate versus kind of dominant personalities in business. And I've been thinking a lot about that maybe people fear looking less than, right?
It's about, I think, also about the personality of those peoples. I value, or I cannot be anything but authentic.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else is a waste of time for me. So so all of the connections I'm making are authentic ones, and if they're authentic, then if I'm, you know, if I'm having a hard time, then everybody will know about it, you know, in the right volume, of course, and depends where.
Yeah.
I wonder also how much of it is cultural, right? And how much it varies from culture to culture. What are your thoughts on that, Kasha? What are you hearing, since you work with recruiters, right? You train recruiters. These days, well, first of all, I would imagine you don't have the same volume of requests as you did, you know, a month and a half ago. But also, are you in touch with your clients, with your recruitment clients, and what are they saying to you?
Yeah, so I would say I'm probably not in touch with my clients as much as I am with the community that I manage in Poland, just because I'm sure my clients are very busy. And frankly, I have not been in top form recently, and I don't think I'm ready just yet to be out there as a, you know, professional. I think there's a lot of responsibility that comes with being a trainer, and perhaps that's why recruiters as well feel like they shouldn't be as visible. I certainly wait until my feelings are handled so that I can be in touch with people or broadcast my thoughts, you know. So I'm still processing, I think, what's happened. And I would say a lot of people are processing it. In Poland, we have this, I think we find it easier to share when things are not going well for us. If you ask, this is what I laughed at when I lived in London. If a British person asks you, "How are you?" you're supposed to say, "I'm fine, thanks," and you. Well, never ask a Polish person that, because they will share every little detail, including my neighbors being noisy, and and my cat is acting up, and everything that's going wrong for them, they will share. I'm not sure which one is more helpful. I think if we're broadcasting negative feelings, it ends up, snowballing into something really horrible. And I've seen that happening on LinkedIn. I think it's going back to what you said before. A lot of people tend to pile on recruiters and say negative things about them. And I don't want to see that happening right now. But I've seen recruiters stop what they do professionally and start doing something very positive for the community. So I think that is something that's much easier to share. I've definitely seen more positive news than negative ones. So I think we're kind of doing the same as everyone else, right? Just trying to focus on the positive things that we actually share.
It's interesting what you said, because and it's in line with what I mentioned. Are one of my biggest pet peeves about the vocation is so many people will come out of the woodwork to say something negative, right? So I fear that if I post and say, my business is struggling, recruitment is going down, I'm going to have 100 people show up just to say, well, good. And just, whereas if somebody from another profession posts the same thing, they're not necessarily going to have people coming, to express their, past frustration with a completely different recruiter just to make that comment to me, right? So I definitely understand the hesitation of sharing it, but I think that's why also it becomes so clear right now how valuable it would be to us as recruiters, third-party recruiters, providers of services to recruiters. We're all in the same community, to have a community of our own, right? Where we can discuss and share and support each other without the fear that we will have this, negative commentary. But I'm not going to let you off the hook, Kasia, because you said you're still processing and kind of trying to lay low, but you're not laying low right now because we're on a LinkedIn Live broadcasting all over the world. We're doing it so we could, tip-a-toe around questions. So how has your business been affected, and how are you feeling, and what are the thoughts that you're processing right now?
Right. So I would say, first of all, I think my biggest problem is it's not the crisis only that affected my business. For the past 2 years, every single year, I started with a big project, and maybe it wasn't something I absolutely was in love with, and maybe it was more like straightforward technical training, but it would set me up for the year. This year, that has not happened. So I was really waiting until some of the events I organized to see more cash flow, even though they're not necessarily a big source of income. They're more for the community, but I do end up, paying myself a small amount for the time I put in. And then I had to cancel the events. So I ended up having to give back all the money that people paid in for the tickets. That was very difficult, especially since I still had to pay the tax on it. And I don't get the tax back. I just don't have to pay over the next couple of months. When I would normally pay the tax, I won't have to do it. But then I'm not really earning, so I won't be paying tax anytime soon. It's tricky. Me personally, I'm very lucky because I have next to no expenses. I live with my mom in Poland, in London. I would be with my husband right now, so I don't technically have bills of my own. But I can imagine anyone else in the same situation is currently going through a very rough time.
Certainly. And following on what Kasia just said, Laura, what do you think? Is it because I'm seeing, and I'm also Eastern European, right? So I understand the angle of, we keep, we put our game face on, and what's the point of oversharing? We're strong. And then if I start complaining and really share, then it's just gonna have this, effect of snowballing, and then it creates more negativity than positivity. So that's my Eastern European part will say that. And then my North American part will say, no, it's all about authenticity and vulnerability and putting yourself out there no matter what. What do you think? Because you know what, Laura, you're a very atypical New Yorker. I remember when I was first going to meet you. So Laura and I don't know if you ladies know that, we met on Twitter. Okay.
Okay.
And then started. So we would be in those Twitter chats, and as they would go on, we would go in direct messages to trash talk people in the chats, and we were always seen eye to eye.
Brainstorm and to educate. Come on, we weren't that.
That's what Laura was doing. I
was not.
And then I was going to New York one day, and we agreed to meet up, and I was like, oh my God, I'm meeting this third party recruiter in New York. She is gonna be, top. And then Laura was the biggest sweetheart that I'd met in my whole entire life. So that was reality, expectations, reality. So what are your thoughts, Laura? And do you feel that we should, first of all, have you been open and vulnerable, externally? Because you are very active on social media. You get 1 million likes and comments the moment you say hello on LinkedIn. But so what has been your reaction to this externally? And also, what do you think it should be?
Yeah, well, I love that all 4 of us women entrepreneurs also have a global component. So I have a lot of family in Italy. So like you, I feel like I have an Italian mindset and a New York mindset. And the Italians are very loving and open, as you know, and very emotional and very affectionate. And so when we talk to our friends and family there who have been in much more dire situations than we are, they can't even leave their house for a walk in some cases. So I feel like I've been really exercising my communication around feelings and emotion there. In New York, it's been interesting because I think the recruiting community and certainly the HR community, they're often the strong people for everyone else. So when I start a call, it's a lot of, I'm great, thanks, how are you? Just like Kasha said with London. I've been stopping that and starting over. So I've been saying, okay, why don't we actually say how we're really doing, and I'll start. And then I'm really vulnerable and say, I'm really scared. This has been very difficult. You know, New York is really apocalyptic right now and very depressing. I'm in my parents' basement in suburbia just to be outside of that visual environment. And I'm scared. I'm scared for the state of the economy, but I'm also hopeful and optimistic. And so when I share that, it's wonderful. I've had a lot of people exhaling saying, okay, I'd like to share how I'm doing. And in some cases, it is really positive and hopeful. Maybe they're not feeling fear or sadness, and there's no judgment there either. We're all kind of digesting it differently. But I'm trying really hard to bring some of the Italian vibe into the New York vibe so that I can let these people kind of have a safe space to feel. We talk so much about psychological safety at work, and I don't know if we've created that enough for our community. You know, we should create a safety net, and maybe it is smaller, like Kasha's saying, maybe it's one-on-one, or maybe it's in forums like this. Certainly, I don't know if we have to broadcast it to all of those haters that find us, because I know how damaging that can be too. I mean, we can feel really hurt when those things come out. I even saw, Marina, when you posted about our call today, and somebody said, oh, I hate all headhunters, I hate recruiters. You know, I think all of us who are human feel that. It's a bummer.
Well, I like to look inside, okay, and see if we are responsible for some of those things that they're saying, okay.
Sure.
And I'm sure that some of us are, okay. Maybe, I don't know, maybe I was at fault at times, but it really shouldn't be that bad. But I think that coming out of this crisis, we should definitely tackle those areas where some recruiters, some of us, are weaker.
Yeah.
And like, there's going to be a whole how would I say, there's a lot of it's a employer's market right now, okay. It just changed. Like it was the war for talent. The war for talent is just I think maybe I'm wrong, I don't know, okay. It doesn't mean that you have a large volume of CVs that the war for talent is off. Perhaps it's not the right CVs still, okay. But I feel that recruiters should take this chance to perhaps, upgrade their game, okay? If you haven't been telling people where they stand in the process, start doing it, because you're going to have so many people to tell this to right now. You can't afford to go back to what you were. And if I may mention technology, of course, I mean, some teams have totally sized down, and they're going to have to do more with less. They're either going to hire us as externals, or they're going to have to also tap into technology, okay? I mean, a chatbot or some other technology can do a lot that they haven't been doing, like, telling people where they are in the process, or just being in touch, et cetera, et cetera. So I really hope that we're all going to come out of this crisis somewhat different, okay? At some point, you know how it goes with a spiral. You go to the same place, but a little bit deeper and a little bit deeper, okay? Improve, become better, listen. I mean, I also hate it when they say such horrible words about us, but I've heard some recruiters speak, and I understand them.
Yeah,
okay, yeah. So I just hope that all of us are going to have a deep look into ourselves and see how can we become better at what we do.
Yeah. I've been hopeful that people will decide if they really want to stay in recruitment during this type of period, because I remember this in 2008 to 2010. Those of us who worked in that time remember that when recruiting got difficult, so many thought, well, why am I even doing this? This is hard work. I wanted to be in it for the money or the closing or the speed. And and the volume. And that's not going to be this market, as you say, Karen. This is going to be about quality and coaching and influencing and guiding.
And trust,
Yes.
trust. They need to trust us. Okay. They are in such a vulnerable, the potential candidates. Yeah. There's such a vulnerable situation right now. If we're just going to be like, I don't want to say bullying, yeah, but not sensitive to their needs and to their situation, it's going to kill us. Really. I believe.
I agree. So I'm hoping those who don't have those natural sensitivity or natural empathy will start to evaluate if this is truly their calling.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, it's a different profession than it was a year ago, as you say.
Yeah, but I think recruitment did go through this a few years ago. When was it? I mean, every time it gets hit, when was the last time? I forget now.
2008, 2009 is when we had the almost recession.
Right.
Actually, ironically, this is when my partner and I founded Pronexia, was as we were going through all of that with our economy and the market. And at that time, if you'll remember, even the companies that were hiring, they were nervous to hire permanently. So it was mostly temp and things like that, which I think is what we're going to start seeing a lot more of, especially that people are saying that we might have another wave of the pandemic in the fall or in the winter.
Yes.
I think
even
for sure that will be happening, happening temporarily. Anyways, we started Pronexia and we said the one thing that we're not doing is we're not doing any temp staffing. and listen, built the business, it worked. But I agree with you. Karen. And I mean, I agree with what you're saying. Also, Laura, it's going to be, well, first of all, the self-check of A, do you want to be doing this? And also B, the market has changed overnight. You're right in saying it's no longer a war for talent. It isn't. Like, we can be very blunt and say that. Companies all of a sudden went from having no choices and struggling to get any candidates to even interview for certain positions, to all of a sudden have the selection of amazing people, which is also heart-wrenching. Seeing those Excel sheets circulating online with people who are looking for work, who have been let go, let's say, from the same organization. I don't know, I have this eerie feeling every time I get them. I get quite emotional. But so, Laura, you said this is the time to evaluate whether this is even the vocation for us. And I agree with you. But also, and in line with what Karen was saying, that this is also the time to, expand their skill set and listen and, improve. But let's get tangible here. What should we be learning, upskilling on, expanding? Because look, we're also we've always heard two contradictory things, okay? One is find your niche and stay in it, right? Because then it's a point of differentiation. You're not like everybody else, okay? So that's one. Two, we've heard, well, if you're not going to do that, then offer very different services, right? So if we look around this virtual room, offer recruitment and executive search, offer recruitment training, and do HR tech. But now we're saying in a situation like that, everybody's equally struggling. So your recommendations to recruiters who are watching and listening right now, as far as upskilling, as far as changing lanes, being prepared for the, positioning ourselves to start making some money again eventually at some point. Let's brainstorm. And by the way, to all of you listening, if you have ideas on where we should all be, improving, upskilling, monetizing, please share them in comments below as well. This is a joint discussion. So Kasia, what are your thoughts on that?
Right. I think it's not going to be very tangible, I think, because the very, very first thing that no one ever seems to have time for is self-reflection and working on our empathy and how to handle our own emotions so that we can start to help others with their emotions. And it's a lot of hard work. I think last year I was lucky enough to end up in a workshop about authenticity, and the name of Brené Brown was mentioned. And ever since, I started reading her books, like Daring Greatly. And it's really interesting because it is actually a lot of work to work on our own emotions first, and this is where the difference is going to be most visible. HR tech, Sure, you have to know about it, but in the end, you can hire someone externally to do this. For recruitment or sourcing, you can hire someone for, whatever needs you may have right now. But ultimately, the most important thing that a recruiter brings to the table is the sort of emotional maturity and social maturity that people who don't do this for a living simply won't have. Understanding why diverse teams are important, and actually learning on an emotional level to like diversity, which is, by the way, really, really hard. I seem to be in a diverse community myself, and let me tell you, people disagreeing with you, it's not nice. It doesn't feel that great. So it's something that we also have to learn in order to then be able to represent that well for the companies. And I would say this is the first time ever that we can take a step back. There's this pressure to be productive all the time. I even felt it right now when I thought, okay, well, there's nothing I can do for my business, so I'm going to start cleaning. Because you need to do something, right? And see the results of whatever it is you're doing. And then I thought, you know what? Cleaning was great. I cleaned one of my balconies. I'm lucky enough to have two. And instead of starting to clean the other one, I thought, I'm just going to read a book on that balcony I cleaned. And I'm just going to spend some time with myself and enjoy the fact that maybe I can't go out, but it's nice and sunny. So I think that taking that time, learning to do this for ourselves so that we can start being more in tune with our values and actually start representing them better with our employers, which is going to be terribly hard right now because we're all going to be more desperate for work. But if we keep agreeing to do things that we don't actually believe in, there's nothing you can learn to be better off in a year's time, I think.
And on the topic of, I guess being more human and more complex as a human being, I have to say though, Brene Brown's work has not landed with me at all. And I really tried, and literally every person that I have massive amounts of respect for has told me, and I don't know if I'm not ready. I don't know if it's a deficiency in me. I don't know if it's me, not her, her, not me. I have no idea, but just hasn't landed. But I am huge on developing self-awareness and empathy and compassion, and developing not only with our skill set, but also our emotional bandwidth too. So, one of our audience members right now, Lee Warner, says that he thinks the best way right now to deal with clients is to literally just say hi and ask how they are and ask how their families are doing. And I agree with that. But I heard you, Laura, say we should be doing that for each other as well, as a community of recruiters. And to your point, and you all said that in different ways throughout this conversation, our field really is like third-party recruiters, or again, service providers to recruiters who are in a similar space, is extremely, like, I don't know what it is, like very siloed. I remember one time, one of our clients, a big pharmaceutical company in Montreal, hired several recruitment firms, but to work on different parts of their business. So we would all only get our mandates on exclusive basis. We wouldn't overlap, but depending on our strengths, right? Like they would hire recruiters that specialize in accounting and finance for this, executive search for that, tech for this, etc. And then they said, this is a true partnership for us with you guys. So we want to have a vendor day where you all come and you all spend the day together with us and our hiring managers. And we do presentations. The president's going to come in. All the different line managers will come in, do presentations. You'll introduce yourselves. And it was fascinating to see, because the level of discomfort in the room among all the recruiters, and we weren't competing. Like, we all got our piece of the pie exclusively, and we had already gone through RFPs and pitches. Like, this was supposed to be good feels, and there was like a lot of food and drinks, and it was kind of cool, a cool experience. But just the tension in the room, and just like, and we like started being civilized and talking to each other because we didn't want to look bad to the client because they were observing us, but it just felt tense and fake and uncomfortable. Can we somehow use the crisis, and I feel bad using that terminology, but use this crisis to somehow remove that and create more collaborations? Is there room for collaborations in our field? What do you think, Karen?
Yeah, okay. So let me tell you something. I'm leading a group of HR tech founders, and some of them are competition. But it's working really well because it's co-opetition, okay? They're helping each other, and but in that way they're succeeding more, okay? So yeah, I think absolutely we should all have this co-opetition ambiance, but listen, you know what? I'm 56. I'm no longer I put it this way. Sometimes it kills me that I don't understand why aren't everybody just cooperating, okay? But it's how life is. Some people like their cards close to their hearts, and they will not play along, okay? So I can't change that. And, sometimes it really kills me. Why aren't you just, sharing more? It's going to help us. But that's how it is, okay? Some groups we will never be able to bring in because that's their personality, okay? I mean, my parents, when I started sourcing, I immediately opened the group. I was sharing everything all over the place. And my parents were saying, are you crazy? You're giving out all your secrets. And I said, yeah, I'm giving everything out. But no one has my personality and I do things my way, okay? So I had no problem with it, but people do have problem with it. So I think let's not think that we can change the world and bring everybody in, because it's never going to happen. It's always going to be a quality group of people willing to share and and operate in a competition setting. Okay, so I'm all for it, of course, but I really don't like it when I share in a certain setting, and I'm like almost the only one, or 2, 3, 4 people are doing it, right?
If I may,
I relate to that, and I feel there is such a, and this I've shared many times already since the whole Corona crisis. It really, what has been my saving grace so far is the sense of community that I've experienced that I didn't expect, from literally the neighborhood community, walking outside with kids and people are smiling and waving. It's very Pleasantville. It has not been like that before. Very nice. And also I belong to a community of entrepreneurs. And so that has been extremely supportive and collaborative. But I'm curious to know what our audience thinks. Do you guys feel that there's value in us coming together and creating our own private community? I mean, it can be big, it can be global, our private community off LinkedIn, where we can share, where we can come together, we can support, but also learn and upskill together. If you feel there's any value in that, I mean, we can just make it simple, put number 1 in comments. So if we'll see 1 sitting in the comments, we'll know that's what it is. By the way, Laura, you got a shout out, so I'm going to have to read it. Karen Isaacs. I hope you know who that is, because she said some nice things. She said, Laura's awesome. I met her on Twitter, then in real life, and was on such a high for days after met. From one New Yorker to another, she's real.
Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you.
That's nice.
Laura, have you ever worked in any type of, have you ever done any type of collaborations or collaborative work with other recruiters in any?
Yeah, not in a formal way. I had a similar experience to what you're describing with a client probably in 2015, where they had agency recruiters come to the office, and it was similar. It was strange. People really they were kind of judging each other. And I thought, wow, I'm so proud to be a recruiter, and I'm proud to know others in this space. And same with Karen. I mean, she's been recruiting many more years than I did. And when we met for coffee, we both said it's so nice to have a discussion with someone who gets this industry, who, we don't have to put on a facade or an image. And I worry that sometimes our community is sort of filled with people pleasers, which, I'm sure some psychiatrists can evaluate why that is. But we tend to want to make candidates so happy and make clients so happy and make sure that everyone is, as Karen described, we want the most impeccable experience for all involved. And then the burnout on our end is immense. And so I feel like so often, especially in this particular what I'm calling the collective trauma of COVID-19, so many recruiters are calling me in tears that they're so exhausted. They don't know how to respond to all these emails. There's so many invites. They want to make sure they're dealing with those spreadsheets and responding to everyone in need. And there's a quote one of my best friends told me recently that said, givers must set limits because takers never do.
Oh yeah,
And
big time.
It's not that candidates are takers or hiring managers are takers by malintent. It's just the nature of the business is that we're the one to serve. We're the one to show up and produce and perform and counsel and advise. So we have to set the limits of how many Zoom calls can we do a day? How many calls can we take a day? And to Kasha's point, I've been careful about, even for myself, making time to cook, making time to color, making time to just take a nap. Or otherwise, I could be on 10 Zoom calls a day that are incredibly therapeutic for the recipient and for me, of course, to give. But there has to be some semblance of, I call it the recruiter experience, just like the candidate experience. We also need to feel psychologically safe and valued and respected and, and maybe, again, it sounds awkward and uncomfortable to even say that out loud, but I think it's true that we also need to ensure that we are part of the equation. We're part of the experience.
Whoa,
What? If I may, just because I wanted to add something to the question before, but I'm going to start with my mom always uses this. She always says, how on airplanes they tell you to put on your mask first. Well, before you can help anyone, you have to help yourself. So you have to make sure that you're in a good condition. But I think cooperation can really be the way. And it's funny because I've started doing this before the crisis. In fact, I think it was last year that I went like full on throughout the year with that idea, where I was working with other trainers. And whenever I would be called up by a client who said, okay, we want something about candidate experience and sourcing, I would be like, great, but I can't do both. I'm going to have to do it with someone else because you want experts in both fields. So I started working with other trainers, and that was really an extension of a collaboration that we worked on before. So we started sharing our rates with each other because we had that feeling that clients will sometimes use the fact that we're not open with them against us. So I had someone who told me like, oh yeah, I'll take 3,000 for a day. And I was like, you can't do that. That's not enough. Like, I mean, and we shared how we would calculate our fees, and then we shared what our fees were. And now I like that it's still continuing in the crisis, and we keep like, you need a support group to not go down with your fees right now. Yeah. You need someone to tell you it's okay to still charge what you're charging.
Yeah.
That is imperative.
By the crisis, but they will still go like, oh yeah, but you're really desperate, aren't you? So like, how about you do it for like 20%? I've heard even as low as 10% of the actual fee. Like the client asking, can you do it for 10% of what you would normally take because you have nothing else on?
You're bringing, like, what are you, what are you contributing, and what is your self-worth? What is the value that you're bringing to a company? So, yeah, I mean, the hashtag recruiter Twitter that Marina and I met in, along with the chats. I mean, I have made such great friendships. A few, again, as Karen said, it's quality versus quantity, but a few where we've shared contracts with each other. We've brainstormed about how to negotiate, and I'm happy to advise and vice versa. And that's been wonderful because in a lot of cases we've been undercharging, especially as women. And so it's important to share and talk about it. So I love that.
And on that topic, Laura, and it's in line also with a comment that we received from the audience. Alexandra Wilkes said, I would say many people would now look into changing their career due to the market changes. So we should focus on helping people do that. So helping candidates. I know, Laura, that you've always been so open with your time for job seekers, or even people who are not actively seeking, but just people that you would help with advice and go for coffee and jump on calls, and always done all that consulting work for free. Like, let's just be honest, because we're talking about let's not lower fees, but how much free work have we all collectively done over the years, right? So my question is, specifically on creating service offerings to charge candidates, Do you feel there's room for that? Do you feel right now it's a bit like taking advantage of the situation? But nonetheless, I mean, we also have bills to pay, right? Like there's all this empathy, but I'm also nervous about my mortgage, right? And the bills that I have to pay and the food, etc. So do you feel that there's room for that to start charging for those things that we never charged for as far as consulting?
I had a good talk with Kasha about this recently regarding why are companies not paying for all of us when they let go their team or when they're downsizing? I mean, they're outsourcing services. I would rather charge a company. I mean, I personally have never charged a candidate for anything, and it would be hard for me to do so, but I know there are a lot of career coaches and resume writers. I've always done it for free. I know that's probably naive, but I'm more than happy to charge large companies substantial fees for my services. I think right now, it's a lot of money to ask of people when they're out of work and when they're in a difficult situation. I can write a resume or edit a resume in an hour's worth of time. I can't do it 12 a day, but I could do 3 or 4 a week for my community. I don't know. It's a hard one, but I like Kasha was talking about outsourcing really being a big industry in times like this.
Yeah, I think like the idea of outplacement. So basically companies paying for the service. Yeah. So companies paying for professionals to help the people that they let go. I think that's much easier because we're going to feel better with it. The truth is, like, if you look at the way companies spend money, they're not necessarily going to spend it very wisely. They might as well spend it on me. That's what I always said, like, oh, if you're going to, spend money on job postings that bring you no applications whatsoever, you better just give that money to me. And I keep thinking that it's easier also for us ethically to charge companies because, I think people who have been let go, it's already pretty difficult for them. And so we would feel better being able to sell that sort of service to companies. And I know for a fact that this has been happening on the Polish market. So I think that's a good idea for any recruiter who enjoys that sort of work and is trying to come up with a new service offering.
Yeah.
So I would like to add something to that. The Israeli market, I probably like other markets, but I don't know if maybe even a little bit more, is mostly based on success fees. Okay, so a lot of those recruiters or headhunters or name it what you wish are doing it for success. Okay. Now, when you have those out there, it's very hard to compete when you say no, but I'm going to charge for it. Okay. So also, so that's one thing. So we have to deal, it's not only the situation and are they going to pay me, but why would they pay me when they're, they want to pay nothing to somebody else, not nothing, but, based on success fees. So that's really a problem. I don't know how it is in your markets, but in Israel, it is a problem. Okay. By the way, when I got into the market with sourcing, I started changing that. I said, no way am I going to work for free. You pay for my hours. And, if I was able to do this, then you pay a success. You can complete the, pay the difference. But nowadays, I'm afraid that it's going to get even worse because people are so, out of jobs, recruiters and, headhunters and all of us. I'm afraid that some of us will be doing this for free. And what does it mean for us? I mean, what am I going to say? Yeah, but if you're going to take me, I'm like premium. I'm like, the best, blah, blah. I don't know what we're going to do with that. And to another point, sorry, just
I'm writing it down. I don't forget.
Yeah, just wanted to say something else. I'm really in awe of my friend. She's a headhunter here in Israel. And what she has done is she has moved on to help job seekers. Okay. With regard to your question, does she charge them money? She does, but she gives a lot for free. She does a lot of webinars and tips, and she's like all over the place with free tips, okay? So those who can't pay, they can live on everything, all the free stuff that she's giving out. But those who want more in-depth kind of consultations, then she will not do it for free, and I support her in that. And that's how I think we should roll. Give some stuff for free, but do the essence and the hardcore work for a fee, of course.
You wanted to say something, Laura? You were writing things down.
I just realized, like, I guess I've been thinking this, but it just came together when Karen was saying this. So many hiring managers do not know how to hire. And recruiters often think, I've been really careful not to judge recruiters as good or bad, so I can't say bad recruiters anymore, but there are recruiters who are transactional. They're in this industry to fill a job, send resumes, fill the job, move on. That's never been my MO. And I think going forward, it's important that we really think about what we do. So there are hiring managers who don't know how to hire. I mean, they don't know how to overcome the bias that Kasia talked about earlier. They don't know how to do behavioral interviewing. They don't know how to structure an interview. They don't know how to close a candidate, pre-close a candidate. I mean, there's a list of things that are skills that frankly they shouldn't know because it's not their job all day. I think we could be really looking at that market in all of our regions as not necessarily just recruitment, but again, the training, the education. Sounds like Kasia and Karen are have been doing training for a long time, but I certainly haven't. And I think going forward, there's going to be more of a need for that in the New York marketplace of, okay, maybe we can't afford a headhunter for these 20 searches, but can you come in and maybe teach our internal recruiters, the few that are remaining, how to do it better?
Right,
exactly. And we should be charging a premium for that because that's saving them a ton of money on the inside.
Yep, absolutely. And I would...
because that entails our own career transition in a sense, and with that our own rebranding, right, of our own our own reputations, our own personal brand, and how we're perceived, right? Because if for so many years people know me as Marina, owner of a recruitment firm, you are owner of a recruitment firm, then that's what they envision, right? So many people right now, we're seeing this a lot, specifically, of course, with marketers, people who work with content a lot, putting out tons of content, working on their personal brand, kind of being out there, top of mind. There's a lot of room for recruiters to do that right now, because as you had said originally, all of you have said, everybody's been laying low, right? Like yourselves included, like laying low and kind of figuring it all out. So there's room to not lay low. What's the opposite? To stand up, rise up, and start putting out those messages and saying, and all of a sudden start talking about things that normally maybe we haven't been talking about, so that we start associating ourselves with those subjects in the minds of our prospective consumers. What do you think about that? About using the opportunity right now to elevate our own brands, or if you don't like the words personal brand, you can replace it with something else, but just our own visibility, and kind of doubling down and doing that right now.
If I can answer that, because I'm not sure who that was directed at, but I'm just going to jump in if I can. I think for me personally, it's been very difficult. People have been asking me, oh, are you writing a ton of blogs now just to prepare for it? Because you're not doing anything else, just to prepare for the future months. And it's been really difficult because every single time I go on LinkedIn, everything is about the crisis. And frankly, there's only so much we can all take talking about it. So I think it does have to feel useful for someone. So the sort of things that I'm going to get involved in are, well, this is one of the things. Then I'm going to do a webinar for Polish recruiters about how to look for a job if they had been laid off. So like more technical tips. And I think it's a great time to think about your personal brand, but I would say just try and think about it first before you jump out there and start to be more visible, because you have to stand for something. You don't just want to be visible, you want to be visible with a message. So just think about what that message is before you start posting all over.
I love that. I have been posting all over, so I'm sure there's some sort of message behind it. I'm not and bad, but it's been therapeutic for me. I've been doing it more for myself than others, right? So we all find that's my version of cleaning a balcony. But you just mentioned something interesting, Kasia, the webinar that you're doing for Polish recruiters that lost their jobs, because this is something we haven't talked about, right? A lot of people are losing jobs, but that includes recruiters, third party, but also in-house. what are your tips for them, or what are you going to be talking to them about?
Yeah, so first of all, it's about just, taking that step back and actually making sure that, first of all, you're in the right industry. This is what you want to be doing, because in recruitment, I feel a lot of people tend to get into recruitment because they didn't get any other job. So they end up being recruiters, right? I mean, I was here by accident too. And if you don't love it, then try to figure out why that is. And maybe you're lacking the skills, or maybe you're constantly getting overworked, because we're also taught not to look after ourselves. We're taught to be, like waiters or waitresses, just taking down orders and then trying to bring whatever someone ordered from the kitchen. But guess what? Maybe that something isn't available today, and now you have to tell the customer, and they're getting angry. So this is how it feels a lot of the time with hiring managers. Basically, you're telling them, oh, I can't do that, but you're not telling them at the right time. Maybe this is the time to try and, learn to be more firm, to be more assertive. It won't get more difficult than that. Like, if you can be assertive today, then you're going to end up being assertive for the rest of your life, because right now is where it feels most scary, I think. And then there's technical stuff, like I see a lot of recruiter profiles on LinkedIn, and most of them, how do I say that without judging them? Most of them don't look like they have been written by the recruiter, but more like the recruiter just copies and pastes whatever their employer tells them to put on there, or they say that's what the job is. So if you're still working, then make sure your profile is written for your candidates. But if you're out of work, this is the one and only time when you can write a profile for your next employer. Normally that's not allowed for recruiters, because you should be talking to candidates. But if you're out of work, just make sure that whatever is on your profile has been, that it's actually a good CV. That's what it's supposed to be. And then third of all, I would say, look at the skills that you have, and don't be overly ambitious. Your next job doesn't have to be, the right step in the career of your dreams. No, it's just going to have to get you through the crisis, right? I myself very often dream of just working in a grocery store. Right now that's stopped a little bit because it's not very safe. But if I had to do this to support myself for the next couple of months, I would do it, and I would not feel ashamed about it. So put the feelings of shame aside and just think about whatever job you can get right now. I like the idea of some jobs having more social impact right now. So working in a grocery store, currently a very important job. And I think people feel differently about it than they used to, right? Because grocery store workers are basically helping us all to survive, and they're, risking their lives to sell us a cucumber. So, yeah, I think that's important as well. Just look for whatever is going to get you through this, and then you can get back on track once we're all past this, hopefully.
Karen, before you chime in, I just have a question. When you pick up a remote and you press on it, is it for your air conditioning?
Yes.
I'm so jealous.
I'm hot, I'm cold, I'm hot, I'm cold.
Oh, so every time you do it, I'm like, oh, it's so cold in Montreal.
I'm at that ugly age where I'm hot and I'm cold, and I'm hot and I'm cold. So that's it. That's why I like working alone, because, if I was in an office right now, it's always fighting with everybody on their air conditioner, if it's going to be on cold or. I grew up in a family of tough love, guys. I'm sorry. I love it that we're supportive, and I'm also trying to be supportive, but I'm like, I may be, I want to give some tough love here. Okay. Corona crisis is not the last crisis that we're going to feel in the near future. And yes, again, Kasia, maybe you heard me too many times already in conferences, but the exponential growth of technologies is awaiting right around the corner. Now, recruiters did not understand, not only recruiters, I mean, everybody, it's very hard to understand what exponential growth is. But we now understand what exponential growth is because we saw how Corona, we saw the exponential growth. We see how it's, slowly, and then it jumps up, right? Same goes for all the technology, the way it's evolving, and it's going to affect our work. What I would try to do right now, I mean, and I know people don't feel like me, a lot of people don't, but I would try to leverage this pain that we're feeling to grow out of this, to understand it's never going to go back to what it was. Okay, you need to step up right now. Okay, yeah, for money you may want to go and work in a grocery store, but still set that time aside to learn where is recruitment going. Okay, what's going to happen? Is there going to be a job for recruiters? Sourcing, recruiting, HRs, are we going to need 3 people doing the same when we have technologies out there? So what I would like to see recruiters doing right now also is understanding it's not only about now. This is a wake-up call. I wrote a post and said that it caught everybody with their pants down. Okay, don't let the next crisis to catch you with your pants down again. And this means growth. I would like to see recruiters learning more about their industries, about branching out to other topics, innovation. Even you as an in-house recruiter, getting a more innovative mindset will happen when you branch out and learn about other topics. As you said, some recruiters are very transactional. They're just, just filling that role. I think recruiting will be, the good ones will survive. I'm sorry, there are, I would say the more professional ones will survive because they will be more than just a recruiter filling in a role. Okay, so that's a little bit of tough love. I don't want us to just do this to ourselves. We need to buckle up and tackle what's waiting for us. And this is only the beginning, guys. This is only the beginning. I'm sorry.
What you're saying really resonates, Karen. And listen, we're here for the truth bombs. We're here as a support group to make ourselves feel better, but then also have something tangible to carry out of this as food for thought, right? And then we process it in different ways. We're at the top of the hour, and I just want to ask you, Laura, to close with you. What are your thoughts as somebody who is, what are your reflections on what Karen was saying just now? As somebody who is deeply passionate about recruitment, niche in your field, which allowed you to build, a massive community and network and really, really understand recruitment in your field, right? Recruitment within HR, versus somebody who's a generalist, such as myself, which kind of like knows a little bit about every field, but not in depth. When you hear what Karen is saying, branching out, learning new things. I mean, she did also mention learning, the industry, the field in depth that you have. How does that make you feel? Like nervous, kind of like, what does that mean? Excited? Does it resonate? What are your...
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't think it's tough love in a bad way. I think it's truth. I mean, I've been recruiting for 17 years, and there are times when the candidates become the full focus. There are times when hiring managers become the full focus. I think what I'm learning is that we are here to educate. So we're here to educate hiring managers on how to hire better. We're here to educate candidates on how to interview better and do their CV better and all of this. And if we just take a yes, ma'am, yes, no, as Pasha said, if we're just a service provider, we're really doing a disservice to our entire industry and profession. So there are times we have to give a lot of tough love and a lot of tough feedback. And sometimes my clients and candidates are shocked by my candor, but then they thank me 6 months later because they realize, wow, that was the advice I needed to hear. So I think the recruiters who will thrive in this market will be brave enough to push back, to educate, to guide, to influence. And that is scary. And that does, I mean, I'm a huge Brene Brown fan, as you know, Pasha, as well. I mean, it is brave and vulnerable to say to a CEO, you're doing this wrong. Here are some ways to do it better. But I think that's ultimately the only way to go forward. I think just sending resumes, as Karen said, technology can do that. That's not where we add value at all.
You work like a robot, you will be replaced by a robot. Very simple.
I feel that this begets the part 2 series, which is called "So Where Do We Add Value?" Just open that conversation, but we can go much in depth and brainstorm and discuss it at length. So if you ladies are interested in doing a follow-up discussion, I would love that. And I guess another important question is to our audience: are you interested in continuing these conversations? And I mentioned already the idea of creating our own community. So these conversations also don't need to be happening on LinkedIn or Facebook or anywhere where it's completely open. We can have it, behind closed doors, behind closed virtual doors. But it's just us, and we're really, brainstorming authentically and sharing very openly. I think that's something that we should continue doing, because it covers both things. It gives the support that we're talking about needing, but also at the same time pushes us outside of our comfort zone, so that, as Karen said, we're not caught with our pants down and are prepared for similar situations affecting our field. So thank you all very much for being here, and thank you so much to everybody who tuned in to listen and commented. And by the way, all three of you ladies got all sorts of shout outs, and Kasha's amazing, Lori, you're the mom, Karen, hello. So you'll go to the comments and you'll respond to everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks all.